hardcore boxing fans out there, how are you doing? Big Porky here, the voice of hardcore boxing, and I hope you've subscribed as well, or I'll be coming to pay you a visit.
Porky's Corner is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Site Solutions. They are specialists in civil engineering and demolition contracts for the construction industry. Interested parties should visit their website or contact Porky's Corner for a referral at porkycorner@mail.com.
Hello, all you hardcore boxing fans out there. How are you doing? It's Russ here from Porky's Corner. We're joined by Julian. Thanks for liking and subscribing. How are you doing, Jules?
I'm very good, mate. I'm tired, but I'm very good. And I'm definitely not avoiding being on Porky's Corner. I've seen a few comments saying, "Where's Jules hiding?" And I'm like, it just hasn't happened yet, has it, Russell? It's a
That was me
simple.
Sunday. I passed out, didn't I, just before? What night? I've been up 2 days, haven't I?
Well, I wasn't going to say that. I was just going to say we couldn't connect.
So I admit it. I thought, I'm just going to have a quick hour here before Julian comes on. But I already had Terry on when I got back. I've been up 2 days, mate. Oh, and right, mate, it's mess.
People realise how hard you worked and how many hours you put in. They'd realise.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I've had some time with my pals and that for ages.
It's important. It's important because we can talk about this stuff 20, 30 times a week, but we'll come back to it in 6, 12 months and it'll be the same kind of story, won't it? So take some time off, spend time with your buddies, mate, unwind, spend time with your kids. It's important.
I like going over there. It's a laugh.
Yeah.
Good lads. Good boxing people. Obviously the big talking point, Saudi and Captain Chaos and Greedy Belly and all the rest of them, Bricktop, all the characters. You know, what do you make of it all, Julian? You know, from start to finish. Let's have your take on it.
I'll give you my take. I'll go off on some tangents. I'm probably going to come at this a slightly different angle to what everybody else does. And that's just because it's how my brain works. I've not planned any of this really. I've just been out with the dog for half an hour thinking, all right, just crystallizing my thoughts. And as always, I start with the caveat. I watched The Odd Thing since last Saturday night online, but generally I don't. You know, I watch a fight, I digest it myself, and I don't pay too much attention to the Sunday sermons and all that kind of thing. So first of all, hand on heart, I absolutely did not see that coming, but who did? I think there's only the MMA fans and there's only the fans of Ngannou who thought that were going to be I'll use the word competitive fight very, very loosely. I don't think it was competitive for either. I'll go into that a little bit later on, purely because what happened. There was 2 rounds where we had a little bit of action and the rest of it.
You want me to help you along? I'll ask you some bullet point questions and I'll just let you run with it then, yeah?
Yep, go on then.
Right then. Why was the fight made, for starters?
It was an absolute cash grab. It was a prelude to the Usyk fight. And I guess what we saw with the event and the kickoff of the Ridar season, it made sense to everybody apart from hardcore boxing fans. And as I've been saying on here for the last 2 years, hardcore boxing fans don't matter in terms of generating money and generating interest in boxing now. the whole landscape of boxing has changed completely, and it massively changed last night, and I'll go into that one shortly.
Yeah, right then. So all the characters there, right? So was there a belt online?
I guess the only belt online was the unofficial who's the baddest man on the planet. And if you just let me expand on this one for a minute,
No.
as I always do. Listen, what I've always been into boxing since I was a kid. I won't do chapter and verse, but you know, as a boxer, amateur coach, pro coach, etc., I've give over 30 years to the sport. I've been around it at every level, so I like to think I've got a reasonable knowledge of boxing. About 30 odd years ago, you know, the UFC. I'm not going to go on about the UFC because I don't watch these events, by the way, but I have a pretty good understanding about the sport. But mixed martial arts, UFC came, and it kind of answered questions that we thought might be there. You know, when you're at school, would Bruce Lee beat Muhammad Ali? Would Jean-Claude Van Damme beat Mike Tyson? Those questions we're all asked in the playground, didn't we? That's what we do. We're kids. We look up to tough men, fighting men. And I think we've established over the last couple of decades that ultimately the best fighters in the world, and this is a boxing channel, the best fighters in the world are the elite mixed martial artists. But what we didn't expect was someone to come over from mixed martial arts and almost beat the number one fighter in the world. Never mind pound for pound, Tyson Fury is the number one boxer in the world. He's the best fighter in the world. He could beat, obviously, Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. And we've got a guy who's come over, and Tyson Fury couldn't really do a thing with him. And it was shocking because for me, it confirmed what I've been saying for quite a while, quite sadly, that the world's changing, Russell. The world is changing. We used to call the heavyweight champion of the world the baddest man on the planet. And now we have to admit there's a whole host of other guys coming from cross-training backgrounds who are the baddest men on the planet. And who knows what, realistically, and I know it was a boxing fight, I keep calling it crossover fight, what Ngannou would do to Tyson Fury and all the other heavyweights if it just come to an open fight is frightening. We saw the strength of him in the clinches. And that goes for John Jones and all the other top fighters, that there's just this, it was like, it hit me like a sledgehammer on Saturday night, because I've known this for some time, that boxing, and you're going to hate me, and everyone's going to hate me, boxing now, it's an art, it's becoming a pastime. It's the relevance in terms of hand-to-hand combat and the relevance of pure boxing is just becoming a pastime. And I thought it was a very, very sad night. And what Saturday night showed me was MMA can transition to boxing, but boxing can't transition to MMA. And I thought it was quite sad, actually.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you a little story here. A few years ago, when I was in Porridge, I read an article by Larry Holmes, and he were talking about he were about that film When We Were Kings, because he's a small role in it. He was like a sparring partner, wasn't he?
Amazing
for Ali, and he used to sit around, and Ali would tell stories into night and that, and he were coming out with things like Foreman had got this tag, as the baddest man, and Ali wanted to be that man. He said, "I want that tag back. I want to be the baddest." He just wanted it so bad in sparring, in training, in everything. He just wanted to be known amongst his peers as that man. And I think there's a lack of that today. They just want to be known as that man that gets a few views, gets the money and gets out. They don't really respect the sport like them guys, I don't think. So this generation...
They absolutely don't respect the sport. And I think what's happened is there's this chasm between heavyweights. We know Canelo earned insane money and Floyd did. And we know the big super fights we've seen in the last 12 months, the lighter weight fights have earned money. But generally, the chasm between what heavyweights earn and what everybody else earns in boxing is very, very clear. It's massive. Yeah. You can't measure it. And this is why we've got all we're hearing now is Wilder wants to fight Ngannou, Joshua wants to fight Ngannou. All these guys want to queue up to fight an O1 fighter because they're only interested in the money, and they're not interested in being the baddest man on the planet or else they'll cross over to MMA. They're not interested in being the number one heavyweight in the world. They're just interested in making as much cash as they can, and that's fine. That's fine. But that's why the Puritans like myself are just. I watch boxing with one eye open now. It's as simple as that, and it's all about cash. And what you've just said there, so Larry Holmes and Ali. Larry Holmes wanted to prove he was the baddest man in the training camp, didn't he? When he was sparring with Ali, those guys put it on the line in sparring, and it's now fighters don't spar as often as they used to do, which I can understand that from a medical point of view. But there's just honestly the MMA fans now, and I know a lot of MMA fans, they're actually laughing at boxing, Russell, right now.
Oh, listen.
They're laughing at our sport.
Ali, right? When Larry Holmes got to that status, he said, "I'm the king of the jungle. I'm the baddest." He says, "Ali were the baddest. I'm the baddest," and that's all them men wanted to be, in it.
Which is why Larry Holmes went after Rocky Marciano's record, which was why Larry Holmes went after Joe Louis's record of 25 defenses, because the way for them to prove they were the best was to beat the best and to get the big numbers. Not the big numbers in terms of how many zeros you've got on a paycheck. The big numbers in terms of I'm unbeaten, I've done this, I've beat all these guys in the top 10, I beat the British champion, the best in Britain, Ali beat the best in Germany, the best in Britain, the best in the US, and they went on these dominant tours, didn't they, and beat the absolute best out there. And now it's like, we get responses from the likes of Fury that have 150 million in the bank. If you don't like it, F you. And it's all right, that matters to you. But when the when the roll call comes out in 50 years, 100 years, when boxing's finished and there's no such sport as boxing, and your ancestors you're not there in the pantheon of the top 10, top 15 all-time great heavyweights, and certainly not in the top 100 fighters of all time. You might be the richest, but you ain't going to be the most talked about and the most legendary.
You think we've been duped? Have we been duped by Fury, really, with this papering over
look,
and that?
I'm going to have to bring perspective to this. I always do, and I've not talked about the scoring of the fight yet. I think it's academic, because if we go into the scoring of the fight, and we can do, it becomes a little bit silly, really, because we shouldn't be talking about who people thought won that fight. It's a little bit silly. Are we being duped?
Boxing lost, didn't it?
Boxing lost. Tyson Fury, one bad performance does not make a bad fighter. Okay, I'm not of this new subscriber now that says any heavyweight out there can beat Tyson Fury, because that's really not the case. It's just not the case. But it was a stinking night for boxing. It was a stinking night for Fury. It only made financial sense. It never made career sense, because you're on a hiding to nothing. If you beat Ngannou and dominate him like I thought he would do, people say, so what? You were supposed to. If you struggle with Ngannou, wow, that can only harm your reputation. And have we been duped? Look, I think we've been duped for a few years now with heavyweights, because ultimately, I'm like a stuck record. The fight once a flood. And I've said to you, how many times have I said to you when we chat offline, the skill level now, you can't compare this skill level from 20, 30 years ago, heavyweights, from the Tysons, Holyfield and Lennoxes, because they don't fight enough, they're not active enough, they're not learning the craft every day in, day out. They just sat doing a few pad videos for Instagram and fighting once a year. You can't become... I think this is Terry Chappendama. I've heard say this so many times when he does his beautiful boxing podcasts. Terry always says, the only way you become good at something is by doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it all the time. That's the only way you become good at something. So you don't become a good heavyweight champion of the world fighting every 9 months, every 12 months. You just don't. You might be the number one, you might be the highest paid, but you don't become good at it. Boxing's a skill, it's a craft. And you have to take an approach that I'm learning something new every single day in the gym. And another thing, and I go on my tangents now, what really always frustrated me is that the sport hasn't evolved, because I always used to watch coaches all the time, watch coaches in the corner, in the gym, in the ring, in real life, on video. And I watch fighters. I watch study boxing. I used to study boxing crazy amounts of hours when I was a kid. I used to get Kronk videos, VHS Kronk videos, and study Hill McKenty, Mark Breland, Mike McCallum, Tommy Earns. I study those guys, Breland, sparring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds on VHS video. No one studies it now. No one really studies the art, which is the one good thing I'll always give Ben Davison and one or two other coaches, because he studies boxing. There's not that many coaches who study it, but fighters don't. When I was in the gym talking to fighters, and I'd ask about certain things, certain fighters, and have you seen him? Have you seen them? And I'd say, have you seen Ray Robinson, how he throws a left hook? And they'd say, I'm talking British and future world champions here. Who's Ray Robinson? Oh, he's before my time, Jules. And I'd say, do you think I'm like 80? It was before my time. It's your job to study these people, to study the evolution of boxing. And people don't study it. So back to Tyson Fury. Is he still
studied it? Tyson studied them all.
I don't know if he has, Russell. I don't know how much.
Tyson Fury has.
I
He's
don't
a
really
historian,
know.
isn't he? He's a historian.
Well, where's the evolution in Tyson Fury's style?
Oh, we didn't see it at weekend, did we?
Well, you know, you study competition in all aspects of life, whether it's marketing, media, whatever. You study competition, and people say they're historians, but if they were historians, they would have known he wasn't the first fighter to have 2 trilogies, wouldn't he? He would have known that.
Oh yeah.
They're studying, and
they're reinventing wheel, aren't they, Furies?
Yeah. But do you see my point? You get really good at something.
It's like his dad 100 on hard road. It becomes folklore as soon as they've said it, because they've got the platform.
Of course it does.
He said he's had the person to have 2 trilogies, and it's rubbish. Didn't Ali have one?
Ali fought Kenny Norton and Fraser, and Holyfield fought Ruiz and Riddick Bowe. They both had 2 trilogies, so it wasn't even the second person. But it's like I've said, just quickly, I go back to Larry Holmes and what Terry says about you do something by... When Larry Holmes beat Kenny Norton in 1978, Holmes was not the finished article. No. Right? He was a new champion. And he fought on... He didn't get massive money, and he fought 3-4 times a year. And it was only when Larry Holmes got to about 1980, 1981, 2-3 years, he'd been in that... He was in heavyweight champion. He was in that role. And he'd get 7, 8, 9, 10 defenses. He really started hitting his prime.
Witherspoon won his 15th defense in 82.
Exactly. Do you see what I'm saying, though? He became really, really good because he was fighting regular and fighting active. If you're like Fury and you have 2 years out, put all that weight on, then you come back and you fight some low-level opposition, a couple of cracking wins over Wilder, great wins. And then you take another 6 months off, and then you take 9 months off, and this is the first time you box since December, a 10-rounder. That was there's no accident that Tyson Fury is having poor performances like he did on Saturday night. We just didn't expect it to be against Ngannou, which no accident. You've got to fight regular. It's your craft. I don't care how much you're earning. You have to fight regular. You have to be in the gym all the time, and you can't be putting 4 or 5 stone on. Did you see the state of him when he turned up for the press kickoff?
Yeah.
Did you see the state of him? I mean, come on. You're embarrassing boxing. You're supposed to be a champion, a world champion, a people's champion. And you turn up looking like that.
And sounding like that.
And that is, I'm sorry, it's no accident and it's no surprise what happened on Saturday. It's just we didn't expect it to be against that opponent. But I said to you, aren't I, offline, whilst I think he's the best of his generation, I've said to you so many times, he'll get beat within the next 3 fights. You can't keep winning and keep performing against the kids coming through when you fight every 8, 9, 10 months and you fight at low-level opposition. So what we've had now is Tyson Fury has had three fights against mediocre opposition. Before anybody jumps up and down, you know I've never rated Dillian White, don't you?
Yeah.
I've never rated Dillian White. I thought it was just all hype, matchroom hype, pay-per-view nonsense. put to sleep by an old man 2 fights before Fury. I always thought it was Anthony Joshua knocked him cold. I never rated Dillian White, ever. And then you got Derek Chisora, and now you've got Ngannou. You've fought 3 mediocre fighters. Before anybody jumps down my back, Ngannou's not some elite heavyweight. Let's not start saying now he's the second coming of Gene Tunney, because he's not. He's a hell of a strong guy. Hell of a strong guy. He was also 37 years old almost, and he hadn't fought himself for 2 years.
Yeah, he crashed top 10, hasn't he, already?
Unbelievable. Do you see what I'm saying? There's no Saturday night's performance was no accident. We can't be surprised when a guy is doing Netflix documentaries, he's piling on the pounds, he's absolutely massive at the press kicker, he's fighting low-level opposition in the 3rd fight against Chisora, sparring with guys like that, and then we're surprised when he doesn't perform. Sport doesn't work like that. You won't get any other sport. You won't get the Federers and the elite tennis players. You wouldn't get the Real Madrids being inactive and playing non-league sides and then turning up winning the Champions League. You got to fight and contest and train with the elite level mentality all through your World Championship reign, or else you lose it. And Tyson Fury is losing it because he's dropped down 5 levels, and he actually performed 5 levels below the Tyson Fury that we remember.
Yeah. What do you think to Derek Chisora, aka the man from Atlantis? Because he sounds like he's underwater, doesn't he, when he's talking?
Truthfully, I don't want to be dismissive. I can't talk about these guys, Russell, because I don't think anything to him, because he's just another bad heavyweight who's earned a load of money.
Well, Derek Chisora's offered to save the December 23rd show and fight Ngannou for less money than Fury. They brass themselves off, don't they?
I've not seen a lot of the stuff, but what I will say, I mean, I don't know where to start in terms of the fighting itself. The one thing I will do, you know me, I always like to add balance and perspective. Tyson Fury's performance was awful. And this is where I will get shot down. Ngannou wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but I still thought it was bad. I still thought it was poor. That's not a world-class fighter. I just think Tyson's dropped down a level, and sometimes you drop down and you drop to a level of mediocrity.
Didn't Gary Sykes fight a big rugby player at an exhibition the other month or something?
It were about, I think about 3 years ago. I know he'd been out the same day and they had some charity match, and I was like, oh, Gary, don't do this. It was a guy he knew, but they had a proper go. The guy was 16.5 stone. He was an ex-professional rugby player. They did it back at some pub. Sykes, obviously, we used to be 9 stone 4. I think Sykes broke 2 of his ribs and broke his nose and stopped him in 3rd.
Yeah.
But I don't want anything to do with that. I don't watch that nonsense, because it's like I've seen how that kid could fly in his heyday.
Gary weigh?
Gary now might be at 10.5 stone, 11 stone.
There you go. That's what happens, isn't it? So
you drop down to a level of mediocrity.
Put Gary up against Ngannou, wouldn't you?
Honestly, it's like massively strong guy. You could see. Look, if you're a guy who's getting kneed and elbowed and kicked and day in day out in the gym, you're grappling with some of the strongest guys in the world. You become tough. He also had that Cameroon toughness, didn't he? I know Terry talked about that, about enlarged skulls and higher bone density.
Yeah, there were them experts were going on about his feet. If you look at his feet, the thickness of his feet, they're like like a buffalo's feet.
Unbelievable.
The thickness of his toes, his little toes are like our big toes, aren't they?
Francis Ngannou, can you imagine if Francis Ngannou,
freakish looking guy, isn't he?
If Francis Ngannou was in an empty room and John, Tyson and Shane all set about him, it wouldn't end well for them guys.
No.
He's a beast. He's a beast of a combat sports athlete. He's not an elite boxer, no matter what people say. I don't care what people say, because I don't go along with, as you know, I don't go with narratives. I don't go with this, that, and the other. I go with my eyes. And I'll keep saying the same thing. I think Tyson's been so inactive and drop down a level of mediocrity, I think there's an element of it. He might not get back up, but then again, the heavyweight division is not exactly what it was in the 70s. I also wonder, a little bit like Ali Fraser 3, I also wonder what Wilder and Fury left of themselves in the ring that night, the third time, because they really did punch hellfire out of each other, didn't they?
Yeah.
And sometimes brutal. I'll give you an example. So whether you love him or not, Nigel Benn was never the same after the McClellan fight, was he?
No.
He just went. So even though Ben won that fight, there's something brutal happened in that 10 rounds with McClellan. And I do wonder if Deontay Wilder took an element of Tyson Fury with him in that fight, because it was a brutal, savage fight. And their legs aren't there, are they? They're just not there. The timing, what was poor. It's what I will say. I'll again be open. One of the hardest things in the world, though, as a boxer, is to fight a non-boxer. They're all elbows and they're all over the place. You don't know what they're going to do because they don't know what they're going to do. So there is an element of fighting someone massively unorthodox that makes it difficult. However, Ngannou didn't look to me like the biggest box of tricks ever to figure out. He extended his front hand, whether it was orthodox or southpaw, quite a bit. That makes it hard because you got to step in, you got to be quick and time it and shoot down the middle or loop the shot over. So he extended his front hand, but Ngannou, whilst at heavy punching, it wasn't quick. It wasn't explosive. There was no combinations. There were just a few thudding blows. And the one thing I will say, I watched what Eddie Hearn had to say about it, just because Eddie gets some stick and Eddie was always going to rinse the fight. But it was a fight where some fights have drama and suspense. And the suspense was, wow, Fury might get beat here. But as a fight, the fight was awful. It was dreadful. I don't often look at punch stats. I'm certainly not swayed by punch stats, but it was like, it was dreadful, wasn't it? When it come, the fight was crap. It was garbage.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was awful.
Press conference. They cancelled it.
Can do what they want. I don't know if the check's in the post or the check's already come through.
Yeah, but they won.
You have a duty. You have a duty. You have a duty to do.
Yeah, but they won. They won. You usually can't get them off camera when they win, or he sings a song. It ring, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know he's done a few since, but I've not seen them. But apparently he's been quite candid. I think that's Tyson, isn't it? Tyson can be quite candid, and then next week he'll be saying something different. That's
he
just.
thought he'd lost.
I don't know if he thought he'd lost, and it was a real curious fight to score. What I do know, and what was really obvious after 2 rounds, was he didn't want to be in there. When you're in with a guy and you think this is going to be so easy, and then you let your hands go, and he blocks them, or you land a couple and you don't even move him. The guy's head didn't even reverberate, did it? The guy's head didn't even move. I think he thought Tyson's shots were a joke, actually. You know, this guy now.
He looked comfortable, didn't he, in there, didn't he?
He looked really comfortable. I think he thought Tyson Fury's shots had nothing in them, but I also think he thought Fury's physicality was nothing. And Fury, in the second round, he took a couple of square jabs to the chest, and I think a right hand round the side of the ribs. And he had that look in his eyes, which was, I don't want to be in here. I'm going to have to work hard. And then when he got dropped, it was just the whole thing just started to fall apart. And I thought, I just thought it was a poor fight. I thought it was a really low skill level. I thought it was a bad night for boxing and a bad night for heavyweight boxing. And Fury will march forward. He'll fight Usyk, I'm pretty sure. And I still think he beats Usyk. People, it's funny how the fickle nature of boxing fans as well, isn't it? Because I'm not a Fury fan. I like watching the man sometimes is interesting, but you know me, I think boxing died a long time ago in the heavyweight division. So I've said to you, hand on heart, I don't actually care who wins. I don't care if Usyk wins. You love Usyk, but I don't love him. He's all right. I'm not a big Usyk fan. I'm not a big Fury fan. I couldn't care less who wins between those two. So I'm pretty consistent with that. But boxing fans are fickle because Usyk, when he beat Joshua, was the next great thing. Then everybody's saying when he fought Dubois, he got knocked out and it was controversial. You know, I didn't think it was, by the way. And now Fury's put another stinker in because I still think even though he cleaned him out, I thought the Dillian White fight was a stinker because there was 5 rounds of nothing. I thought the Chisora fight was a stinker because it was just sparring. And I thought Saturday was a stinker because, never mind the punch stats, they both landed about 5 clean punches each in the entire fight. And it's just shit. It's just shit.
Do you think, Julie, that Fury, right, might come out, do an interview and say, you know what, I thought I'd get him out there in 3 rounds. And when I realised I couldn't and he dropped me, I thought I'm going to be in for a long night here. And I'll just get the W right. And then I've got too many people around me and I fell off at wagging. And you think he'll go, so my head's all over the place, mental health route. Do you think he'll go that route to win everybody back over?
He's definitely going to take some time out, isn't he? There's no doubt about it.
There's obviously something not right, isn't there? Because he's been behaving like a buffoon, hasn't he? Did you see him grab that mic? When that bloke said, I apologise for swearing, he grabbed Mike back off him and then said to the crowd, if you don't like it, F off or something. I've got.
I mean, that's actually, it's an imprisonable offence over there, isn't it?
Well, well, when Conor McGregor did it, everybody cheered, but it was that Vegas crowd, wasn't it?
Vegas, that's not Saudi.
When he did it over there, it all went a bit eerie, didn't it?
I woke up on Sunday morning and I just thought, and I've not once mentioned the scoring so far because I'm not particularly bothered about it, but I just thought, do you know what I thought, Russell? And I come on here and I must sound like Victor Meldrew when I'm having a go at boxing, but how did we get here? How did we get here? We're not talking Ali, Antonio Inoki, Floyd, Mayweather against Conor McGregor, because these guys had already cleaned out divisions and proven they were all-time greats. They're entitled to do it. But we've got young, lively challengers out there for Fury. We've got a unification we want to see. And I just thought, how did we... My mind was the same as Tyson Fury's in the 3rd round, because you could see Tyson Fury sat there on his ass, and he had that expression, which was, I'm not badly hurt, I'm going to get up, but what am I doing in this situation? What am I doing in this ring? What am I doing in this fight? What am I doing? And you could see it, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I thought, how did we get to this point in boxing? I don't know how we got there.
I do. Greed.
Greed's always existed, hasn't it? You know,
greed and no quality control for the TV people. They're just like promoting.
Yeah, there's definitely no quality control, but as I keep saying, we live in such a different world now, don't we? Where social media is huge. Television, as we know, television is dead. Sport has evolved. Combat sport has evolved. Boxing is no longer one of the top most 4 popular sports in the US, which it used to be. I think it's now number 10 or 11 or 12. It's just teetering on the top 10. So, you know, Showtime's pulling out, HBO pulled out, all these people are pulling out. Streaming's now the way forward. As I said, television's dead. The world's changing. And, you know, it's just, we are where we are. And I think boxing's becoming less and less attractive. They're having to spice it up by putting Ngannou in there. They're having to talk crossover fights. They have to have misfits. They have to have KSI and Fury, because generally, unless it's a huge fight, no one's that interested, Russell. And I keep talking about this, but I'm in a group and they keep saying the same thing, Jules. It's like, I think, you know, gaming. I don't know if Reggie and Ruby do gaming or not.
Yeah, they know that TikTok nonsense and that
But,
road.
no, but I'm talking gaming, Xbox, everything else.
No, they're not old enough for that nonsense yet.
Well, I read something. My nephew, he's a bright lad. He's an insightful lad. He was a big boxing fan when he was younger and gone off it completely. And he was talking about gaming. This group I'm on, I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about gaming and Xbox. I don't do that stuff. I've never done it. But they're really into it, and they're on all the forums and everything. And he was saying UFC and all these organizations, they bring out these games, video games. They bring them out all the time. And he says there haven't been any boxing games out for years and years and years and years and years. They just don't bring them out anymore. And apparently they've just brought a new boxing game out. And he's just said to me, another example of boxing dying. I love my gaming, as you know, Jules, blah, blah, blah. UFC, I've got 5 games out right now. They're all massively popular, massively selling with younger generation. A developer in Sheffield just made a brand new boxing game with unbelievable graphics. I've played it and I was bored after a week. Every single comment I've read on forums, etc., said, well, all you can do is punch. And that were kind of powerful for me. It's just a message from a lad who was a boxing fan. He's crossed over completely. He says, all you can do is punch. And I think people generally, I'm talking about, the kind of the zeitgeist and everything that's going on at the moment, of the way things are moving, is like, it just doesn't interest people, Russell. So we're having to put it on steroids. Eddie Hearn said it 4 or 5 weeks ago. Or was he talking about KSI and Tommy Fury? We have to learn from this stuff. We have to build people's personalities. We have to build people's social media content. We have to look at Fury and KSI and say, why are they generating those kind of numbers when the big fights and the big fighters aren't getting anywhere near those numbers? And Eddie Hearn's asking the same thing. And I'll tell you why. It's because
Because of big John Fury from Fury Power.
The content of boxing,
it's giant gory.
It's not stimulating this next generation, Russell. No one's interested in it, mate. This group of people watching Porky's Corner, there might be a few younger people, we're all of a generation, but people aren't interested in pure boxing anymore. They're just not. And it's sad.
I don't know.
If you've got to dress something up with that guy on screen and you've got to have people saying, I'm going to bum you and all this kind of stuff, if that's the only way we can get viewers on boxing, you might as well just turn the light off and shut the door. That's
people like me and you and Dripping Tap, we're like dinosaurs, aren't we?
That's what Stuart called me, probably my best mate. He says, you're a dinosaur, Julian. I'm a dinosaur. We like to think we teach the noble art. He goes, it's no longer relevant. People aren't interested in the intricacies of boxing. He says, we're dinosaurs. And it hit me quite hard. And I'm like, we are. And maybe things changed, don't they? Music industry's changed. How people watch things has changed. The theatres are empty. The arts and craft and the thespians, people are watching that stuff, mate. And it's a different generation. It's a different world, and maybe it's time to move over and let these young uns watch what they want to do and do what they want to do. And boxing eventually will become something unrecognizable, and I do think it will die. People have always said, "Oh, boxing will always continue and survive," but go on forever. And thankfully, we've got another couple of parts. But my son asked me a question, and I was like, "Oh, you should come on here and talk to your Uncle Russell, Joe." He just said to me, says, "Why do you think boxing's dying, Dad? Why do you think that?" And I just said, "How long have you got?" And then he said to me, he says, "So how many world champions are there?" So 5, 6, 7, if you split the belts. And he says, "How many weight divisions?" He says, "Well, there was 17, there's 18 now." And Joe says, "Well, how many world champions is that?" I says, "Well, there are unified world champions, but how many world champions have we got now in boxing, Russell?"
Not many, is there, in this country? There's a few.
No. How many world champions are in boxing now? There must be 100 world champions.
Oh, yeah. If you count interims.
There's got to be more. There must be more than 100 world champions. And Joe just
160 odd, isn't there? Something
Joe just said to me, he goes, There's only 5 UFC champions, Dad. How do you explain to someone coming into boxing?
There only used to be 7 in boxing, didn't there?
Yep. The 8 weight divisions. How do you explain? We've gone from 8 weight divisions, traditional, and 8 champions to men and women. We might have 250, 300 world champions in boxing. How do you explain that to somebody who wants to start getting into boxing? I know that's a different conversation,